Does Texas have the answers when it comes to border security and illegal immigration? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of The Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement, Cardio Miracle, which means if you're looking to lower your resting heart rate, lower your blood pressure while improving your pump at the gym, just like I did, stick around. We'll talk about that later in today's episode. Or if you're super curious, just scan that little QR code over my shoulder or head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. You'll know you're in the right spot when you see a little notification on your browser saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols. But let's look at Texas. Go back to the Biden administration, and it was a battle between Texas Governor Greg Abbott and the Biden administration in terms of how Texas was able to enforce their border. But this border isn't just any border. It was the border on the Mexican border, meaning that technically it was also a federal jurisdiction per the Constitution with immigration, right? So it was a standoff, Texas versus the United States government. But fast forward to today under a Trump administration, post a Biden administration, not only is Texas leading the way when it comes to border security, but they might be a model example of what other border states can look to when they're trying to address their border. So let's discuss this, all that and more. Joining us here on the show is a gentleman running not only for Congress, but he's going to talk about all things Texas because he's running for Congress in Texas. Brian Stahl, welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. How you doing?
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing quite well. Elephant in the room. I got to ask the most important question before we even dig into things, Brian, and that is, are you a Dallas Cowboys fan?
I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. Yes, they had a good showing last night. Yes, they had a good showing.
Good answer.
We pulled it off in the end, so it was good.
Yes, it was. No, it's a good answer. Now for folks playing along in the home game, they know I used to live in Philadelphia, so I actually lived there for just shy of 7-8 years or so, and I lived there when they won 2 Super Bowls. So being a Cowboys fan was not fun, but yes, we had a good victory when we beat the Eagles last night there, Sunday Night Football. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk not about the NFL or the Dallas Cowboys, but rather Texas, border security and illegal immigration. But first, Brian, do us a favor. Introduce us here to the Brian Nichols Show audience. I know I said I was going to ask you this question first. I'm going to go right into the hard questions, NFL favorite teams. But introduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience and tell us a little bit more about why you're running for Congress down in Texas.
Yes, I'm a 20-year law enforcement veteran. I'm a current police officer in Fort Worth. I started my career in Irving. I've been very blessed throughout my career to get to experience a lot of things. I did 4 years undercover narcotics. That was quite a ride. I've done field training. I've been in SWAT. I'm currently assigned to the weapons range or the training division. I get to teach firearms. So that's a very exciting job to have. The real reason why I'm running is because due to my experience in law enforcement, the only way I know how to serve people is actually by being with the people and listening to the people and providing solutions to problems that they have. And the only way that you can do that is actually by being present, and we have to have somebody that is willing to step out into the community and answer the tough questions and justify the decisions that they make and be able to have conversations with people, even the tough conversations. You have to be able to look people in the eye and have tough conversations with them. And I've done that over the past 20 years. And I think that it's something that we're, significantly lacking currently. And I believe that I provide that to the constituents here in Congressional District 6. So we're really excited about this campaign run.
And just for folks playing along in the home game who maybe aren't super familiar with Texas politics, Congressional District 6 geographically is where?
So it encompasses a little bit of Tarrant County and Dallas County, but it's more south of there, Johnson County. So it's south of the DFW Metroplex for the most part. Most of it is. There's a big portion that runs through Arlington where the Cowboys play. Runs up into Irving and into the Dallas County area up by DFW Airport. So, but most of it's further south. A lot of rural area down south. So in Ellis County and Johnson County Navarro County. So it's a great mixture for a district. We have some densely populated areas and we have some rural areas. So, you have to be able to understand both and listen to both and serve both. And the only way to do that is by being involved in both kind of, entities when it comes to understanding what the rural needs, understanding what the highly populated cities need, and then taking those voices to Washington.
It's a balance. It sure is.
It is a balance.
Well, let's look at one of the areas though that it impacts both rural and the urban, and that is illegal immigration. And going back to my intro, we saw this in Texas specifically over the past 4 years of the Biden administration prior to Trump. It really ramped up to an 11, right? It was millions of undocumented illegal aliens crossing the border illegally. Again, I can't emphasize the word enough, illegal, into not just the United States borders, but into Texas, in the Texan border, over the Texan border, excuse me. So with all that being said, fast forward to today, Texas did something right? When they finally got the green light, I guess, the federal government out of the way to actually start enforcing the border. So just kind of give us your boots on the ground perspective, obviously seeing what worked well in Texas and what we can learn from what happened during the Biden administration so it can never happen again.
Yeah, the biggest thing we saw during the Biden administration was you nailed it. It's an open border, and there was no support down there. They didn't have the personnel to deal with the amount of crossings that were coming across. Even if they wanted to vet them, they couldn't have, and they were significantly understaffed. And that was something that was by design, obviously, And so now we're kind of, Governor Abbott did a good job by doing what he could to, ship those illegal immigrants to other, sanctuary cities and states. But it didn't even put a dent in it really, so we fought that for 4 years. And, talking to the guys down on the border, talking to troopers down there, talking to the BORTAC guys, the Border Patrol guys, they had no support. They felt like they were, getting hung out to dry anytime that they did any kind of enforcement action. And so it was something that, allowed the mass illegal immigration to occur. And most of it flowed through the Texas border. And then it, it kind of branched out throughout the country, but most of it flowed through the Texas border.
So a lot of the country, and I say this as someone who lived in the Northeast for most of my life, they really don't understand the gravity to which illegal immigration has impacted the border states.
Right.
Some of the cities, and you mentioned the sanctuary cities who got a taste of their own medicine. They got what they had wished for, right? With
right.
Governor Abbott, and I think it was also Governor DeSantis sending illegal aliens up to these sanctuary cities and saying, okay, here you go. Here's what you wanted. And other than that, though, the traditional Northeasterner, even conservatives, they don't really understand how bad it's really gotten, especially for border states. So can you just help better articulate for us what the actual impact looked like for Texas and other border states as they were going through the open border of the Biden administration?
Yeah, when I'm talking about illegal immigration, I'm talking about all illegal immigrants. But, the thing that we focus on the most are the violent criminals. And you see a rise in crime happen. You see a rise in gangs forming. You see a rise in assaults. You see a rise in sexual assaults, narcotics trafficking, all these things, that we weren't able to really kind of focus on or even get a hold of over the Biden administration. And not every single person that crosses the border illegally is a violent, murderer or
right.
rapist or drug dealer. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is that when you have no ability to filter anybody at all of those kinds of people, the real bad actors that come across, and they were coming across, hourly under the Biden administration, there's no way to kind of filter out and see who's who or what's what. And I think a lot of other states, especially the northern states, when they think of illegal immigrants, I often hear this all the time. They say, well, who's going to do the jobs if they're not here? Well, those aren't the people we're talking about. Yes, we're talking about those people because they're here illegally. However, we're trying, as law enforcement, we're trying to take the baddest actors off the street, and that's the number one focus. And then not to take away from the fact that they're here illegally. However, I think that people that don't live on border states, they confuse the two. They see the illegal immigrants as people that are doing jobs, so they say, that Americans don't want to do. And down on the border states, we're seeing a rise in crime, a rise in drugs, a rise in trafficking, a rise in assaults, a rise in murders, and all these things. And so it's kind of two totally separate things within one.
Could you help, for those rises in the different crimes, could you help us understand the increase in those numbers, just to help us understand where things were to where they are based on, the open border, just to help it better put into context?
Yeah, I don't have the exact stats, but we saw a significant increase in where I work. And when you have a murder rate go up by, 60, 70% in certain areas in parts of the district that I'm in, that's significant. It's something that really touches people. When you see fentanyl deaths continue to climb, when you see human trafficking happen at a record pace, those are the things that I'm talking about. And, in order to really truly combat that, you have to be able to secure the border and make sure that we don't have those people, or don't give them access to our country. And B, you have to be able to vet people and track people and understand where these people are. And in order to do that, unfortunately, we weren't able to under the Biden administration. And thank God it's changed under President Trump's administration. And we're seeing a very sharp decrease in those kind of crimes over the past year.
So one thing, there's a lot of libertarians who listen to my show, and there's a lot of open border libertarians, and they argue more from it. Well, there's a couple of different ways they'll argue, none of which I'm comfortable with. I'm empathetic to a lot of libertarian ideas, and I am a small L libertarian, in terms of my philosophy. But one thing they'll say is from a freedom standpoint, no person should be restricted from being able to cross an imaginary line. There's that one argument. From an economic argument, there is the idea that putting artificial barriers in place is going to hurt the economics, where there's a demand for labor, kind of playing into the Northeast mentality that you mentioned earlier, right? Where, these people are here to do a job, factor into the why behind that. Oh, because they're cheaper labor. Doing cheaper labor means that if we get rid of them, that who's going to do those jobs? And that means it's going to increase the costs of things, right? So there's that mentality that carries over. But then there's one part that also gets ignored. That's the cultural side of things too. And I think that doesn't really have an answer from a policy standpoint of the impact in the culture and how it does change society, especially in those respective areas. So just help us better, understand, especially from those objections. What would be your response to those folks who say, well, no person's illegal, Brian, no person's illegal. And also, if you want to put these barriers in place, you're just going to help cause, more prices get expensive for the labor that they would otherwise be doing. So when's the last time you really thought about your heart health? No, not after just a bad checkup or after seeing a loved one go through something scary, but really thought about it. And the reality is most people don't until it's too late. We chalk it up to fatigue, brain fog, or, just high blood pressure, or hey, maybe we're just getting older, or it's that dreaded stress. But the root cause might be something deeper. Your body's production of nitric oxide dropping off. That one molecule plays a critical role in keeping your arteries open, your blood pressure normal, and your cells oxygenated. And without enough of it, you're not performing at the best mentally or physically. And that's why I've been taking Cardio Miracle for 2 years now. It's a nitric oxide powerhouse packed with over 50 ingredients like organic beetroot, L-arginine, CoQ10, vitamin D3 that are all clinically proven to help support circulation, reduce inflammation, and supercharge your energy levels. It's not just heart support, it's whole body support. So if you're tired of feeling off, give your heart and your health the boost it needs. Just click the link in the show notes or scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS
to start your journey today. Discount already applied. Just look for the note, "You're shopping with Brian Nichols" at checkout. One more time, that's cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I definitely, I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with that. How many Americans are out there right now that would love to have the opportunity to work? There's a whole bunch of them, and by how it's affecting everyday citizens and the culture of this country. I hear that too. America was built on immigration, sure. But, a lot of people have come here. I know a lot of people that have come here legally and have done it the right way, and they're productive members of society. The problem is that a lot of these, how it's affecting our culture and our communities and our country is a lot of these illegal immigrants are receiving benefits from the government that American citizens aren't able to get right now.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. And, I can't tell you how many times I've heard it on the campaign trail talking to people. And one of the concerns is like, well, I can't afford this or I can't do that. So if I were to come over here illegally, I would have free housing, a free phone, free food, free transportation, and I think we've significantly, we've been doing it backwards. And instead of taking care of the American people and actually, supporting them and giving them what they need, instead, we've been focusing on the illegal immigrants and giving them what they want. And that's detrimental to the culture of this country. I think it's turning a lot of people off to it, and it's frustrating a lot of people. And I think that they see that, okay, it's cheap labor or however you want to describe it. That doesn't negate the fact that these people are here illegally. They've only been here for 4 or 5 months, and they're put up in a 5-star hotel in New York. They're given a free cell phone. They're given, free food, free TV, free everything. And I've been here for 37 years or however long. And, I bust my butt and work, 45, 50 hours a week, work overtime, and I'm barely making ends meet. So yeah, it's crippling to the culture of this country when it comes to that aspect for sure.
Well, and it's all about incentives too, right? Like you put in, I'm a sales guy by trade. So when I'm building sales teams, one of the most important things that we focus on beyond the go-to-market, beyond the product or service, beyond the value prop is also the incentive structure. What's the comp plan look like, right? I have to give my sales team incentive to sell, but I also have to make sure it makes sense from a stability standpoint for the company, right? So you have to
Sure.
walk that fine line. To your point, if I'm a citizen and I'm watching non-citizens break the rules, and this is not an argument around the rules themselves, and I'm going to ask you that in a second, but if I see people who are just knowingly breaking the rule, and then not only are they not punished for that, they're actually rewarded, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, now changing my incentive structures, because I'm seeing what happens when you kind of go down this path. You can break the rules and actually get away with it. But this then turns to the other question. Well, and I've heard this, and Brian, I'm sure you've heard this as well. Well, Brian, one of the main problems is that it's difficult for people to actually come here legally. And it's our legal system that takes so long that it forces people to say, well, I just can't wait XYZ number of months or a year plus. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the easy button and cross the border illegally. So to the existing process being too difficult, what say you?
Too difficult, maybe too long. I agree with you 100%. And I think part of the reason why it's so long, especially now, is because the amount of people that were let over during the Biden administration, and how many people were seeking asylum in the United States, or so they claim, and they wanted to come over here legally, and they were given a pass and a bus ticket or a plane ticket to anywhere they wanted in the country, and they have to come back for court in 4 or 5 years. Well, all that's doing is backlogging the system. When you just give free passes to anybody that claims anything as soon as they cross the border and tell them to come back and figure it out in 4 or 5 years, well, that's doing nothing but compounding on itself, and it's bogging the system down, and it's slowing down, the actual process for the people that did come over here and they tried to do it legally. They came through a port of entry. They came through and wanted to be United States citizens. Well, those people get lost in the mix of all the millions of illegals that claimed one thing and just got a free pass into the country. So I think that's the biggest problem. I think the biggest problem is that we had so many people that claimed so many things coming across the border, and all it's done is just bog the system down, and it slowed, everything down. It's added millions of people to the list instead of, the 100,000 or a million people that are here really trying to do it the legal way. And yes, it takes a long time. You have to prove that, you want to be a United States citizen, as you should. But, when you add 6, 7, 8, 10 million people to that list, well, all of a sudden you kind of get lost in the mix. And I understand how those people feel frustrated and why some people feel like it's, it's a never ending process and it's never going to happen. But I think that's the biggest reason why, is because we've just bombarded the system with all of these people and we just let them run freely throughout the country.
So let's just magic wand it, right? Like, let's say, for example, we were able to get rid of the and I'm using this word waste, not talking about human beings being waste. I'm saying the waste on the system, right? If we were to get rid of the fake refugee claims and the likes, and the folks who would just traditionally not be in the queue, right?
Right.
Do you believe that would tangibly change the time frame that people would go through the process in the shorter? Or is it your argument that it, by design, the process should be longer despite the length of the process itself?
No, I think it could probably cut the process in half. If we had the people that were actually doing their job, and, the United States government doing their job and actually vetting these people and granting citizenship to those people who truly want to be here, who truly want to, provide to our society and to our country. And I think that it would probably cut the time in half, and if we were to wave a magic wand and get rid of all the other people that claim it, but don't want it and know they got a free ride for 5, 6, 7 years, or so they thought under the Biden administration, I think it would significantly cut down the time for the people who are here trying to do it the legal way.
So other parts of the border conversation relate to, well, what's the best type of security? And we heard this back in 2016 with Trump. It was build the wall, right? And sorry, I'm empathetic to a lot of what President Trump has done, but I still don't see the wall. I'm waiting on it. I know pieces have been built, but I would love to see that happen, or at least, something tangible happen. But maybe a wall isn't the best in all use cases. So if that's the case, or if wall is the best, let us know. But otherwise, what other means do you see from a security standpoint beyond the wall? Is it high security intelligence, like cameras and like infrared or drones or something else? What are your thoughts? You're in this world.
Yeah, so obviously the wall, if we could wave that magic wand again and make a wall stretching across our entire southern border, do I think it would significantly deter and decrease the amount of illegal crossings? 100%. The wall is actually, it's in the process of being built. It's being built down here in Texas. I know a couple of guys actually working on the wall right now, and I'm in contact with them down in the Laredo Valley area. But you're right. It's something that's a slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. So what can we do to, as the wall's being built, what can we do to kind of, combat the illegal crossings? And it's technology and personnel. It's very hard to beat boots on the ground but when you have the people that are out there actively patrolling and looking for people that are illegally crossing into this country, it's not only a deterrent, but it's very effective in sifting out the people that need to be sifted out and being able to understand what kind of process that they need to go through, or did they get wrapped up in something? Are they being trafficked? Or because not everybody that crosses a border is doing it illegally. That's something I want people to understand, because there's a lot of human trafficking that happens. There's a lot of people that get trafficked across the border that don't want to be. They're forcibly, brought into this country to be sold into some sort of trade. So everybody thinks that if you cross the border, you're automatically illegal. Some people, they've been captured and trafficked across the border, so we need to be able to have boots on the ground. We need to have real-time intel on those kind of people and how we can kind of sift those people out, the good and the ones that need, more assistance from us. And then technology is a big thing. I think the infrared you talked about, the FLIR, the night vision, the drones are huge, and the technology is only getting better. And we're using it on the border all the time. We're using it throughout the entire state. So the technology is there, and you can see a lot from, way up in the sky with the drone. And then you can kind of pinpoint hotspots, and you have to be able to dispatch those boots on the ground to those areas and see what we have going on.
We've seen progress in, almost, I would say, outright stopping the influx of illegals crossing the border currently. But we still have, and I've heard the number somewhere in the ballpark of 20 plus million illegal immigrants here in the United States currently.
Right.
I just want to better understand, what would your solution, your proposal be to deal with that existing fact as is? We've stopped the flood. Now, what bucket do we use to dump the water out?
And this may be a little bit controversial, but I think what ICE is doing for the most part is they're doing exactly what we need to do. We need to go into these major cities where we know that most of them are in, and we need to start sifting out the bad characters, right? We need to start looking for the illegal immigrants. And I'm not talking about focusing on, every single illegal that's in the country. That's not what ICE is doing right now, right? It's the bad first, right? The bad ones out first. And that's what they're doing right now. They're trying to sift out the bad characters or the bad apples first. And that's what we need to do. And it's going to take time, and so what they're doing, seems to be extremely effective. And, not only is it deterring illegal crossings, but it's also reducing the amount of illegal immigrants that we have in this country daily, because we're deporting illegals every single day. And a lot of people don't necessarily agree with that. And a lot of people say, well, they didn't do anything wrong. Well, the simple fact that they crossed the border illegally and they didn't seek help from law enforcement, meaning they weren't trafficked here under, coercion or force of threat or anything like that, then, it shows that they are here illegally. But I think what ICE is doing is, it's kind of, it's getting the ball rolling in the right direction. And it's starting to right a lot of the wrongs, and it's starting to weed out a lot of the bad characters.
Running a small business means adapting on the fly, hiring, scaling down, shifting teams based on seasonal projects. But most phone systems, they lock you into a set number of users and then make it a pain to adjust. And on the contrary, that's where Level 365 shines. Add or remove users anytime. Month-to-month plans, scale up when you need it, scale down when you don't. It's flexibility that actually matches how your business works. No headaches, no overpaying for empty seats. Just phones that move with you, and that is what makes Level 365 different.
All right, we're going towards election season, which I can't believe it's right around the corner, but here we are. So, Mr. Stahl, kind of outline the. Yeah, I know. Here it is. Yeah, outline the roadmap here. What timelines do we have? What significant events are coming down the pike here? Is there a primary? Is there when's the actual general election? Is the one coming up here in 2026? I know the answer is yes, but just give us all the details for the campaign and the election.
Yeah, no. So, we're very excited about what's coming up. The primaries in March 3rd, early voting is February 17th through the 27th. So we're looking forward to that. And, we're just doing everything we can right now to get out there and meet as many people as we can and be available to as many people as we can. And that's something that I really pride myself on, is constituent services. And, we have a lot of events coming up, within the community. And that's something that is just near and dear to my heart. I always want to be out with the people. So I love going to events. I love interacting with people, but the primary is the big one, March 3rd. So we're gearing up for that. It's been a very exciting road, very exciting trip. And, we're looking forward to the March 3rd primary for sure. And we're happy with where we are with the campaign and the team that I built around me. I have a significant team around me, of over 30 people. So everything is looking really, really good for us. So.
Good stuff. Well, Brian, good luck. And obviously you have a friend here on the Brian Nichols Show, another Brian that you can always reach out to and join us as things are happening during the campaign. But also, I know I'd be remiss not to mention over on your website, you dig through a lot of the other issues. You talk about tax reform, government spending, pro-life, and pro-birth, infrastructure. Of course, we talked about border security, law enforcement, and judicial reform, and then the 10th Amendment. You can find all of that over at Stahl, STAHL, for Texas.com. We'll make sure we include those links in the show notes. Brian, any final words for the audience before we go ahead and say goodbye today?
No, I just really appreciate this opportunity, and it was great talking to you. Border security is something that's very near and dear to my heart with my background in law enforcement. And I-35 runs right through the heart of my district. So it runs from border to border, from north to south. So we get to see the whole influx of everything that's coming across the border. Eventually it spills into our district. So I'm very aware of all the issues that are happening on the border and how it affects the people of my district. And I want to do everything I can to combat that.
Brian Stahl, you can find him if you want to go ahead and check him out on X. Stahl for Texas TX _ the number 6. Stahl for TX _ 6. Links again in the show notes. Folks, if you got some value from today's episode, please go ahead and give it a share when you do tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty on X, Facebook, and Instagram. As for the Brian Nichols Show, you can find us on your favorite platforms like X, Facebook, Instagram. We have us over on where else? Oh my goodness, Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts. Basically, if you can find a podcast or a video of a podcast over on those platforms, you're going to be able to find the Brian Nichols Show. Just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell, and of course, make sure you check us out every Monday, Thursday, and Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, where we have brand new episodes go live. But with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Brian Stahl. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.